Before clocks struck midnight, before fireworks lit the sky, and before calendars were printed and shared, humans still felt the quiet pull of time turning. The new year was not born in noise or celebration, but in stillness, in fields waiting for harvest, in rivers rising and falling, in stars slowly shifting above watchful eyes. Tonight, we take a gentle journey through how humanity learned to notice the moment when one year softly gives way to the next. Long before numbers were carved into stone or inked onto paper, time was not something humans counted. It was something they felt. It moved quietly through the world, not as a sequence of dates, but as a rhythm woven into daily life. Early humans did not wake to calendars or mark days on walls. Instead, they sensed time through the slow, dependable changes around them. The world itself was the clock, and nature was the keeper of the year. In the earliest human communities, survival depended on attention. To live meant to notice. The length of daylight mattered. The warmth or sharpness of the air mattered. The behavior of animals, the growth of plants, the rise and fall of rivers. All of these were signals. Time revealed itself not as an abstract idea, but as a living presence. When the sun climbed higher in the sky, days grew longer, and warmth returned. People felt something begin again. When shadows stretched and the cold crept back, they felt something closing, settling, preparing for rest. The turning of the year was not announced. It arrived quietly, like a familiar guest. There was no single moment that said, "This is the new year." Instead, it unfolded gradually. Early humans noticed the first subtle signs: a change in the wind, a softness in the soil, the return of certain birds, or the appearance of new shoots pushing through the earth. These were not dramatic events, but gentle confirmations that time was moving forward, that life was continuing its cycle. Seasons were not labels. They were experiences. Winter was felt in stiff fingers, in longer nights, in the need to gather close. Summer was felt in heat on the skin, in abundance, in longer hours of light that allowed work to stretch into the evening. Spring and autumn were transitions, times of uncertainty and adjustment. Through these repeating experiences, humans developed an intuitive understanding of time's flow. The new year, in this sense, was not a date, but a feeling. The sense that the world was shifting into a new phase. The sun played a central role in this understanding. Each day arose and set, marking the most basic unit of time, but over weeks and months, its path changed. It climbed higher or dipped lower in the sky. Shadows shortened or lengthened. These changes were slow, almost unnoticeable from one day to the next, but undeniable over time. Early humans learned to watch these movements carefully. A longer shadow at midday meant something different than a shorter one. A sun that lingered near the horizon told a different story than one that stood overhead. The return of sunlight after the darkest days carried deep meaning. In many parts of the world, winter brought scarcity and danger. Food was harder to find. Cold threatened survival. Darkness lasted longer, pressing inward on daily life. When the days began to lengthen again, even by a small amount, it brought relief. It was not celebrated with fireworks or countdowns, but it was noticed. That subtle increase in light was a promise. It said that life would return, that warmth would follow, that endurance had meaning. For early humans, the new year was often tied to this return of light. It was not a moment of loud joy, but of quiet reassurance. The world had not ended. The sun had not abandoned them. Time was continuing its dependable loop. This reassurance was powerful enough on its own. It did not need ceremony. It lived in the shared understanding of the group, passed down through observation rather than instruction. Nature also spoke through plants, the first buds on trees, the greening of fields, the emergence of flowers. These were signs that the year was turning. Early humans learned to read these signs with precision. They knew which plants appeared first, which followed later, and what each one meant for survival. The appearance of certain flowers might signal the time to plant, to migrate, or to prepare for changes ahead. These moments were not counted, but anticipated. They were remembered through experience, not recorded in symbols. Animals, too, marked time. The arrival or departure of herds, the return of birds, the behavior of insects, All offered clues. When animals moved in predictable patterns, humans learned to align their lives with them. A certain migration might signal the start of a new phase of the year. A change in animal behavior might indicate that colder or warmer days were approaching. These observations were shared through stories and memory, forming a collective sense of the year's structure. In this world, the new year was not separate from daily life. It did not stand apart as a special occasion. It was embedded within the continuous flow of living. There was no sharp boundary between one year and the next. Instead, there was a gradual transition, felt over days and weeks. The year did not end, it transformed. And with that transformation came an opportunity to adjust, to prepare, to begin again in small, practical ways. Rivers also played a role in this early sense of time. In regions where rivers flooded seasonally, their rising and receding became powerful markers of the year's cycle. The flood brought fertile soil, renewal, and the promise of food. When the waters returned to their banks, it marked a new beginning, a chance to plant, to rebuild, to move forward. This natural rhythm did not require counting. It was reliable enough to trust even without measurement. Night and day shaped the human understanding of cycles as well. The regular return of darkness taught patience. The fire became a companion during long nights, and storytelling filled the hours when work was impossible. These stories often reflected the rhythms of nature, reinforcing the shared understanding of time's movement. Through repetition, memory was strengthened. Through memory, time was understood. Without numbers, humans relied on comparison. This winter felt colder than the last. This spring arrived earlier. This summer was longer. These comparisons helped them orient themselves within the flow of years. Time was not fixed, flexible. It responded to the world's variations. This flexibility allowed early humans to adapt rather than resist. The new year, in this sense, was not about control, but about alignment with forces larger than oneself. As communities grew, shared observation became shared knowledge. Elders remembered patterns from many years and passed them on. Children learned to notice what mattered by watching those who came before them. The sense of when a new year began was collective, not individual. It belonged to the group, shaped by generations of attention and experience. The sky offered another layer of guidance. Stars shifted their positions slowly across seasons. Certain constellations appeared at specific times of year. Though early humans did not name or chart these stars as later civilizations would, they noticed their regularity. The sky became a map of time, unfolding above them night after night. When familiar patterns returned, it reinforced the sense of a cycle completed and renewed. This awareness of cycles created a deep sense of continuity. Life was not linear. It moved in circles. Endings were not final. The new year then was not a dramatic break from the past, but a gentle return to a familiar path. What had been would come again, though never in exactly the same way. This understanding shaped how early humans viewed change. Change was expected. It was not feared in the abstract, though it could be dangerous in reality. The new year did not promise improvement or progress. It promised repetition with variation. The same seasons would return, but conditions might differ. This taught humility. Humans were part of a larger pattern, not its masters. Over time, as tools improved and societies became more complex, humans began to mark time more deliberately. But before those markings existed, there was a long period when time lived entirely in observation and memory. The new year belonged to this quiet era. It was sensed, not announced. It arrived without permission and left without farewell. This way of understanding time encouraged presence. Without dates to look forward to or deadlines to meet, attention remained on what was happening now. The new year did not pull the mind into the future. It simply marked a shift in the present. This allowed early humans to remain closely connected to their environment, responding to immediate needs rather than abstract timelines. The absence of numbers also meant that time was shared equally. No one owned the calendar. No authority declared when the year changed. The world itself made that decision. This created a sense of trust in natural processes. Humans learned to wait, to watch, and to accept that some things could not be rushed. In this quiet relationship with time, the new year was less about hope and more about recognition. Recognition that the earth had turned once more. Recognition that life had endured. Recognition that change was constant but not chaotic. There was comfort in this recognition. It offered stability without rigidity. As thousands of years passed, this intuitive sense of time laid the foundation for everything that followed. When numbers finally arrived, when calendars were created, they did not replace this understanding, they built upon it. The earliest calendars were attempts to capture what humans already knew through feeling. They were echoes of shadows lengthening, of sunlight returning, of seasons repeating. Even today, beneath our numbered days and digital clocks, this ancient awareness remains. We still feel something shift as winter ends. We still sense renewal in spring. We still slow down as darkness grows. The new year may now be marked by a date, but its deeper meaning still comes from the same place it always did, from the natural world and our quiet attention to it. Time before numbers was not empty or vague. It was rich with meaning. It asked humans to listen rather than calculate. The new year, in that distant era, was not a goal or a celebration. It was a gentle reminder that life moves in cycles, that beginnings do not need announcements, and that the world itself knows when it is time to begin again. The sense of time that existed before numbers also shaped how early humans understood memory. Without dates to anchor experiences, memory became seasonal rather than chronological. Events were remembered in relation to natural moments, a hunt that happened when the river was low, a birth that came during the first rains, a loss that occurred in the long darkness before the sun returned. In this way, life stories were woven directly into the fabric of the year. The new year was not a separate chapter, but a soft turning of the page, where memories settled and new ones began to form. This seasonal memory created a deep emotional bond between people and their environment. The land was not just a place to live. It was a living record of time itself. Hills, trees, rivers, and valleys became markers of change. A certain bend in the river might look different each year, reflecting the passage of time more clearly than any mark on stone ever could. Returning to the same place after many seasons carried a quiet awareness. Time had moved, even if it had not been counted. In this world, patience was not a virtue taught. It was a necessity learned. Crops could not be rushed. Animals could not be commanded to appear sooner. Weather could not be negotiated with. The new year, therefore, did not arrive because humans wished it to. It arrived because the earth had reached a certain point in its endless movement. This understanding encouraged acceptance. Early humans learned that beginnings were earned through waiting, observation, and endurance. The absence of numbers also softened the idea of endings. Without a final day marked on a calendar, the end of a year did not feel abrupt. There was no sense of time suddenly stopping and restarting. Instead, there was a gentle fading, like light dimming at sunset. One phase gradually gave way to another. This made change feel less threatening. The new year did not erase what came before. It carried it forward, transformed by experience. Communal life reinforced this gentle rhythm. Work, rest, storytelling, and ritual all followed natural patterns. When days grew longer, work expanded. When nights grew longer, rest and reflection deepened. The new year was reflected in these shifts, not in declarations. A change in daily routine spoke louder than any announcement. People felt the year turning through their bodies, through fatigue, warmth, hunger, and relief. Firelight played an important role during times of darkness. As the world outside grew quiet and cold, the space around the fire became central. It was here that stories were told and retold, many of them shaped by the cycles of the year. These stories did not measure time, but they preserved it. Through repetition, they carried knowledge across generations. The new year lived within these stories as a familiar pattern, a reminder that darkness always gave way to light. This intimate relationship with time fostered a sense of humility. Early humans understood that they were small within a vast, repeating system. The new year did not belong to them. It happened regardless of their actions. This perspective reduced the need for control and prediction. Instead of mastering time, humans learned to move with it. The turning of the year was not a challenge to overcome, but a process to respect. As human awareness deepened, certain moments in the year began to feel especially significant. The longest night, when darkness reached its peak, carried emotional weight. The first noticeable lengthening of days brought quiet relief. These moments gradually became touchstones, still not numbered but deeply felt. They marked the emotional edges of the year, framing the experience of time without defining it precisely. Over many generations, these shared feelings slowly solidified into tradition. What began as instinct became custom, yet even then the essence remained unchanged. The new year was not about celebration for its own sake, but about recognition. Recognition of survival. Recognition of continuity. Recognition that life had once again carried itself forward through uncertainty. The natural world taught early humans that every beginning is connected to an ending. Seeds only grow because something has fallen away. Light returns because darkness has had its time. The new year, sensed through nature, carried this lesson quietly. It reminded people that renewal is not sudden. It is prepared for, often invisibly, long before it arrives. This understanding shaped emotional resilience. When hardship came, it was framed as part of a larger cycle rather than a permanent state. The memory of previous years, winters survived and springs returned, offered reassurance. The new year did not promise that life would be easier, but it suggested that change was inevitable. This subtle promise was enough to sustain hope without illusion. Without numbers, time was also deeply personal. Each individual felt the year differently, depending on age, health, and circumstance. Yet these personal experiences existed within a shared rhythm. The new year belonged to everyone, but it touched each life uniquely. This balance between shared experience and individual perception enriched the human relationship with time. Eventually, as humans began to settle, farm, and build lasting communities, the need to predict and plan grew stronger. Observation turned into measurement. Patterns turned into records. But these developments did not erase the older way of sensing time. They were layered on top of it. Beneath every early calendar lay centuries of quiet watching, of shadows stretching, sunlight returning, and seasons repeating. Even now, when the new year is announced by clocks and screens, the body still responds to older signals. We feel different when days grow longer. We sense renewal in the air of early spring. We slow down when darkness arrives sooner. These responses are echoes of a time before numbers, reminders that our deepest understanding of time was shaped long before we learned to count it. The new year, at its core, has always been about awareness rather than accuracy. It asks us to notice change, not to measure it perfectly. Early humans understood this intuitively. They lived within time rather than standing outside it. The year turned not because it was marked, but because it was felt. In that distant era, beginnings did not demand attention. They unfolded naturally, inviting participation rather than celebration. The new year was simply another step in the long conversation between humans and the world they inhabited. A conversation carried by light and shadow, growth and rest, memory and anticipation. This gentle understanding of time continues to offer something valuable. It reminds us that not all beginnings need announcements, and not all endings require closure. Some transitions are meant to be quiet, sensed only by those who are paying attention. The new year, as it existed before numbers, was one of these transitions, a soft turning, guided by nature, steady and unhurried. And so, before dates and calendars, before countdowns and resolutions, there was simply the earth moving, the sun returning, and humans noticing. That noticing was enough. It marked the new year not with certainty, but with trust. Trust that life would continue its cycles. Trust that change was natural. Trust that beginnings would arrive, whether counted or not. In the fertile lands between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers where human civilization first learned to settle, plant, and wait, the idea of the new year slowly took shape, not as a celebration, but as a responsibility. Long before fireworks, feasts, or midnight declarations, the New Year in ancient Mesopotamia was a moment of careful attention. It belonged to the soil, the water, and the uncertain promise of crops yet to grow. Time was no longer only sensed through nature. It began to be observed, remembered, and eventually recorded. Agriculture changed everything. When people depended on planted fields rather than wandering herds, time became something that needed structure. Seeds had to be placed in the ground at the right moment. Floodwaters had to be anticipated. Storage had to last until the next harvest. In this world, the turning of the year was not symbolic. It was practical and deeply serious. A poorly timed season could mean hunger or survival. The new year marked not joy, but renewal of duty. In ancient Mesopotamia, the year was closely tied to the rhythm of the land. The return of spring, following winter rains, brought the possibility of planting. This moment carried enormous weight. It was not greeted with noise, but with quiet preparation. Fields were checked, tools were repaired, communities waited for signs that the earth was ready. The new year arrived not on a single day, but across a span of time, unfolding as nature allowed. The Babylonians, inheritors and refiners of earlier Mesopotamian traditions, gave the new year one of its earliest recorded forms. Their calendar reflected agricultural reality rather than abstract counting. The year began in spring, when barley was sown and life visibly returned to the fields. This beginning was known not as a celebration of achievement, but as a request for balance, for order, for favor from forces far beyond human control. Babylonian New Year observances were rooted in humility. People did not assume the coming year would be better. They hoped it would simply be stable. The rituals associated with the new year were slow and deliberate, emphasizing cleansing, reflection, and renewal rather than excitement. The future was uncertain, and the proper response to uncertainty was patience. Central to the Babylonian New Year was the belief that the world itself needed renewal. Order was fragile. Chaos always threatened to return. The new year became a moment to symbolically restore balance between the human world and the divine order that governed nature. This was not done loudly. It was done through ritual, prayer, and submission to a larger rhythm. Temples played a vital role during this time. Priests performed ceremonies meant to reaffirm harmony between gods and people. These ceremonies did not aim to entertain. They aimed to stabilize. Words were spoken carefully. Movements followed tradition. Silence carried as much meaning as sound. The new year was treated as a threshold, dangerous if crossed carelessly, hopeful if approached with respect. One of the most striking aspects of the Babylonian New Year was its length. It was not confined to a single night or day. It stretched across many days, sometimes lasting more than a week. This extended duration reflected the belief that renewal could not be rushed. Time itself needed space to settle into its next phase. Each day carried specific meanings and actions, reinforcing the idea that the new year was a process, not an event. Agriculture remained at the heart of this process. The health of crops was inseparable from the fate of the community. A successful year depended on rains arriving on time, rivers flooding gently rather than violently, and seeds taking root. The New Year rituals often included prayers asking for moderation. Neither drought nor flood, neither abundance nor scarcity, but balance. Unlike modern celebrations, joy was restrained. Excess was viewed with caution. The New Year was not a time to boast or indulge, but to acknowledge vulnerability. People recognized that they were dependent on forces they could not command. The rituals served as reminders of this dependence, encouraging careful behavior in the months to come. Even leadership was subjected to this humility. In Babylon, the king himself underwent symbolic acts during the new year that emphasized accountability rather than power. He was reminded that his authority depended on maintaining order and justice. The future of the land was tied to moral balance as much as environmental conditions. The new year reinforced responsibility rather than privilege. Patience defined the emotional tone of these early New Years. People waited not passively, but attentively. They observed signs in the sky, changes in weather, and the behavior of animals. These observations were recorded. marking one of the earliest human attempts to track time systematically. The New Year thus became not only a cultural moment, but a recorded one, bridging intuition and documentation. Clay tablets preserved these observations. They listed months, seasons, and rituals. Through them, the New Year gained permanence. What had once lived only in memory and tradition became fixed in writing. Yet even as it was recorded, its spirit remained grounded in agriculture and renewal. Writing did not transform the New Year into celebration. It preserved its seriousness. Prayer was central. These prayers were not personal wishes for success or happiness. They were collective appeals for stability. Communities prayed together, acknowledging shared faith. The New Year belonged to everyone because survival depended on cooperation. Fields were worked collectively. Water systems required maintenance. Renewal was a shared effort. Silence often surrounded these prayers. Loud expression was unnecessary. The weight of the moment required stillness. This stillness allowed reflection on the year that had passed, on mistakes made, on imbalances that might need correction. The New Year was an opportunity to realign, not to escape the past. The idea of renewal extended beyond crops. Homes were cleaned. Objects were repaired. Debts were sometimes forgiven or reconsidered. These actions mirrored the agricultural cycle, clearing old growth to make space for new. Renewal was practical, not symbolic. It improved the chances of stability in the coming year. Time in this context was no longer only cyclical. It was moral. Actions carried consequences that extended across seasons. The New Year highlighted this continuity. What was planted now would shape what could be harvested later. This understanding encouraged careful planning and restraint. The Babylonian New Year also reflected a deep awareness of uncertainty. Even with rituals and prayers, nothing was guaranteed. The future remained open. This uncertainty did not lead to despair, but to reverence. The New Year became a moment to acknowledge limits, to accept that not everything could be controlled or predicted. As centuries passed, these practices influenced neighboring cultures. The idea that the year should begin with renewal rather than celebration spread. Calendars evolved, but the agricultural foundation remained. Even as empires rose and fell, the New Year continued to be associated with planting, preparation, and hope grounded in realism. They did not seek to distract from uncertainty, but to face it with structure and patience. The New Year was not an escape from hardship, but a framework for enduring it. This ancient approach to the New Year reveals something essential about early human priorities. Survival mattered more than excitement. Continuity mattered more than novelty. Renewal mattered more than resolution. The year did not begin with promises of transformation, but with acceptance of responsibility. Over time, as societies grew more complex and prosperous, celebration gradually entered the new year. But the earliest records remind us that the foundation of the new year was quiet. It was built on soil, water, and waiting. It was shaped by prayer rather than proclamation. Even today, traces of this ancient understanding remain. The idea of starting fresh, of cleansing, of preparing rather than celebrating, echoes those first recorded New Years. Beneath modern noise lies an older impulse to pause, to reflect, and to hope quietly for balance. The first recorded New Years in Mesopotamia and Babylon were not about marking time for its own sake. They were about aligning human life with the rhythms that sustained it. Agriculture taught patience. Ritual taught humility. Renewal taught continuity. In these early civilizations, the New Year was not a boundary between past and future. It was a bridge, a slow crossing from what had been endured to what might be sustained. And in that crossing, humans learned to live not ahead of time, but within it, one season, one prayer, one careful beginning at a time. The careful tone of these early New Years was reinforced by the deep uncertainty of agricultural life. Even with experience and observation, nothing about the coming year was guaranteed. Rains could fail, rivers could rise too high, pests could arrive without warning. The new year, therefore, became a moment when uncertainty was acknowledged rather than denied. Instead of pretending control, communities prepared themselves emotionally and practically for whatever might come. This preparation extended into how people viewed time itself. In Mesopotamia and Babylon, the future was not imagined as an open field of endless possibility. It was seen as a continuation of patterns already set in motion. What mattered most at the new year was not dreaming far ahead, but ensuring balance in the present. By restoring harmony now, people hoped to reduce disorder later. The new year was a moment of maintenance rather than ambition. The rituals of renewal often involved symbolic acts that mirrored agricultural processes. Just as fields were cleared of old growth, people sought to clear away symbolic impurities. This was done quietly, through washing, through offerings, through careful speech. Words spoken during the new year were chosen deliberately. Careless language was believed to invite imbalance. Silence, by contrast, allowed space for order to return. Offerings were simple and purposeful. They reflected gratitude rather than excess. Grain, water, and crafted goods were presented not as bribes, but as acknowledgments of dependence. The new year reinforced the idea that humans were participants in a larger system, not rulers of it. The earth gave, but only when treated with respect. The pace of the New Year rituals mirrored the pace of nature itself. Nothing was hurried. Days unfolded with intention. Each step followed tradition, not innovation. Change was not introduced lightly at this threshold moment. The future was too fragile to experiment with. Stability was valued above novelty. This caution extended into social relationships as well. Disputes were often set aside during the New Year period. Conflict threatened unity, and unity was essential for survival. Cooperation was not optional in agricultural societies. It was necessary. The new year served as a reminder that shared labor and mutual trust were the foundation of endurance. Children learned these lessons early, not through instruction but through observation. They watched adults prepare fields, attend rituals, and speak carefully. Through repetition, they absorbed the understanding that the new year was serious. It was not something to be rushed through or taken lightly. It was a moment that demanded attention and respect. The written records from Mesopotamia reveal how closely timekeeping was tied to agriculture. Months were named after activities: planting, harvesting, waiting. The new year marked the return to these cycles. It was less a fresh start than a recommitment. A reminder that the same careful work must be done again, and done well. Even the recording of time carried a sense of humility. Clay tablets did not boast. They listed observations, rituals, and responsibilities. They preserved knowledge so that future generations could avoid mistakes. In this way, the new year became a bridge between past experience and future survival. Astrology also began to play a role, not as entertainment, but as guidance. The movement of celestial bodies was believed to reflect shifts in earthly order. Observing the sky during the new year was another way to seek reassurance. The heavens, like the fields, followed patterns. Recognizing those patterns offered a sense of stability in an uncertain world. Despite these efforts, fear was never entirely absent. The new year carried risk precisely because it marked transition. What lay ahead was unknown. Rituals did not eliminate fear, but they shaped it. Fear was contained, expressed through prayer and structure rather than panic. This containment allowed communities to move forward without being paralyzed. The emotional restraint of these early New Years is striking when compared to modern celebrations. Joy was not absent, but it was quiet and measured. Relief came from having reached another turning point intact. Gratitude came from continued existence rather than achievement. The new year was meaningful because survival itself was meaningful. Over generations, these practices created continuity. Even as leaders changed and cities grew, the new year remained familiar. This familiarity provided comfort. In a world where so much was unpredictable, the return of the New Year rituals offered reassurance. The earth still turned. The seasons still followed one another. Human life, though fragile, persisted. As Babylonian influence spread, elements of their New Year observances traveled with it. Neighboring cultures adopted similar ideas, linking the year's beginning to agriculture, renewal, and moral balance. While details varied, the underlying principle remained the same. Time began anew when life did. This principle resisted abstraction. The new year was not detached from lived experience. It was inseparable from soil underfoot and water in canals. Even as writing and record-keeping advanced, the new year remained grounded. Numbers served nature, not the other way around. Eventually, as societies became more complex, layers of symbolism accumulated, stories were added, myths were formalized. Yet beneath these layers, the agricultural core endured. Renewal still meant preparing fields. Balance still meant moderation. Patience still defined the emotional tone. The Babylonian New Year reminds us that timekeeping emerged from necessity, not curiosity. People needed to know when to plant, when to wait, when to prepare. The New Year answered these needs. It was practical wisdom given ritual form. This practicality also shaped the moral dimension of time. The idea that disorder could accumulate over a year and needed correction suggests an early understanding of ethical responsibility. Actions mattered. Neglect had consequences. The new year was a moment to restore alignment, both externally and internally. As centuries passed, empires rose atop these early foundations. Calendars became more precise. Celebrations grew louder, but the earliest recorded New Years remain notable for their quiet strength. They show a humanity learning to live within limits, to respect cycles, and to begin again without illusion. In reflecting on these origins, we see that the new year was never about escaping the past. It was about carrying it forward responsibly. Renewal did not erase memory. It relied on it. The future depended on lessons learned and remembered. This ancient understanding challenges modern assumptions. It suggests that beginnings need not be dramatic to be meaningful. That patience can be more powerful than excitement. That preparation can matter more than proclamation. The first recorded New Years were shaped by earth and water, by risk and restraint. They were marked not by noise, but by care. They asked humans to slow down at the very moment of transition, to acknowledge uncertainty, to recommit to balance, and to trust in cycles older than memory. In the end, these early New Years were acts of faith, not faith in certainty, but faith in continuity. Faith that the land would respond to care, faith that cooperation would sustain communities, faith that time, though uncontrollable, could be lived with wisely. That faith is what allowed the new year to endure. From the quiet fields of Mesopotamia to the recorded rituals of Babylon, the new year began as a moment of renewal grounded in reality. And even now, beneath modern celebrations, that original meaning remains: waiting, preparing, and beginning again with patience rather than certainty. Long before the idea of a single universal new year existed, human societies looked to the natural world to decide when one cycle ended and another began. Time was not something agreed upon across continents or cultures. It was something experienced locally, shaped by land, climate, and survival needs. Nature was the calendar, and its signals varied from place to place. As a result, the new year was never one fixed moment. It arrived at different times for different people, guided not by numbers, but by growth, water, light, and rest. In regions where agriculture determined survival, spring often felt like the most natural beginning. After months of cold, scarcity, and waiting, the earth softened. Seeds could finally be placed into the ground. Green shoots emerged where soil had appeared lifeless. This visible return of growth made spring feel like a true start, not just symbolically, but practically. Life resumed its outward motion. For these communities, beginning the year anywhere else would have felt disconnected from reality. Spring did not announce itself suddenly. It crept in slowly, sometimes unevenly. A warmer breeze. Longer days. The first buds forming on branches. These signs were watched carefully. They told people when to act. Plant too early and seeds would die. Plant too late and harvests would suffer. The new year, tied to spring, was therefore an act of careful timing rather than celebration. It asked people to align themselves with the earth's readiness. In ancient farming societies across Mesopotamia, the Levant, and parts of Asia, spring marked renewal because it offered possibility. The year ahead was still unwritten. Fields were empty, waiting to be shaped by human effort and natural cooperation. This openness gave spring a sense of beginning that felt honest. It did not promise success, but it allowed hope grounded in action. Elsewhere, water defined the calendar more than temperature. In regions dominated by great rivers, floods became the most important marker of time. The rising and falling of water transformed landscapes, depositing fertile soil and renewing land exhausted by previous harvests. For these civilizations, the new year arrived not with flowers or warmth, but with water. In ancient Egypt, the annual flooding of the Nile was the foundation of life. When the river rose, it brought renewal. Fields were submerged, old boundaries disappeared, and silt enriched the soil. This flood marked the true beginning of the year. It was not destructive chaos, but necessary transformation. The new year arrived when the river returned life to the land. This beginning was not chosen arbitrarily. Without the flood, there was no agriculture. Without agriculture, there was no society. The new year, tied to flooding, acknowledged dependence on forces beyond human control. It also reflected trust. Each year, people waited for the water to rise, knowing it had come before and believing it would come again. Flood-based calendars emphasized patience. The land could not be worked until the waters receded. The new year was therefore a pause as much as a beginning. It required waiting, watching, and acceptance. Renewal came through surrender to nature's timing rather than human urgency. In other parts of the world, particularly in northern regions, winter held unexpected significance. Though winter seemed lifeless on the surface, it carried a different kind of beginning. The longest night of the year marked a turning point. From that moment onward, days slowly grew longer. Light began its return. For societies living with extreme cold and darkness, this return of light mattered deeply. Winter tested endurance, food was scarce, movement was limited, survival required cooperation and restraint. When the darkest point passed, it brought quiet relief. The worst had been endured. Light, though faint, was increasing. For these cultures, the new year was not tied to growth or harvest, but to survival itself. Choosing winter as the new year acknowledged that life does not only begin when it is visible. Sometimes it begins in stillness. Beneath frozen ground, seeds rested. Beneath snow-covered landscapes, preparations were being made. The new year, arriving in winter, honored hidden beginnings rather than outward abundance. This idea of rebirth through darkness shaped how time was understood. Endings were not failures. Rest was not emptiness. The year could begin in silence, trusting that movement would follow. This perspective balanced cultures that experienced long winters, reminding them that light's return was inevitable, even when it was slow. Across the world, these different choices reveal a shared truth. Humans did not force nature to fit a calendar. They shaped their calendars to fit nature. What counted as a beginning depended on what mattered most for survival. Growth, water, and light were all equally valid starting points, depending on environment. In some regions, multiple natural markers competed for significance. A culture might recognize one moment as agriculturally important and another as spiritually meaningful. This led to layered calendars, where different New Years existed for different purposes. One marked planting. One marked religious renewal. Time was not singular. It was complex and responsive. This flexibility shows that early humans were less concerned with uniformity than with relevance. A new year that did not reflect lived reality would have been meaningless. Nature ensured relevance by setting the terms. Humans responded by observing, adapting, and remembering. As societies interacted through trade and conquest, these differing calendars sometimes clashed. One culture's New Year might fall in another's mid-year. Yet rather than erasing differences immediately, many societies retained their local beginnings. This coexistence highlights how deeply rooted these choices were. They were not administrative decisions. They were expressions of relationship with the land. The absence of a single New Year also meant that time felt less rigid. The year flowed rather than clicked into place. Transitions were gradual. Beginnings overlapped. One cycle faded as another emerged. This softness reduced the pressure placed on any single moment. The new year was important, but it did not carry the burden of absolute transformation. Nature-based calendars also shaped emotional rhythms. A spring new year encouraged anticipation and effort. A flood-based new year encouraged trust and patience. A winter new year encouraged endurance and quiet hope. Each beginning carried its own emotional tone, influencing how people approached the year ahead. These tones were reflected in rituals. Spring beginnings involved preparation and clearing. Flood beginnings involved cleansing and waiting. Winter beginnings involved gathering and reflection. None of these emphasized loud celebration. They emphasized alignment with natural forces. The idea that the new year was never one fixed moment challenges modern assumptions. Today, a single date dominates global consciousness. Yet for most of human history, this uniformity did not exist. Time was plural. Beginnings were local. Meaning came from fit rather than agreement. Even after written calendars emerged, nature remained influential. Calendars were adjusted to stay aligned with seasons. Corrections were made when months drifted away from natural markers. This constant adjustment reveals that numbers alone were insufficient. Nature remained the authority. The persistence of seasonal festivals today reflects this ancient foundation. Many modern holidays retain traces of older New Years. Spring festivals celebrate renewal. Midwinter observances honor returning light. Harvest festivals mark completion. Though labeled differently, they echo earlier beginnings. These echoes remind us that the new year has always been about relationship rather than precision. It marks a point of reconnection with land, with cycles, with continuity. Whether it arrived with green shoots, rising water, or lengthening days, its purpose was the same: to recognize change and prepare for what follows. Nature as the calendar also fostered humility. Humans could observe patterns, but they could not command them. The new year arrived when nature decided what to be. This reduced illusion of control and encouraged adaptability. When beginnings shifted slightly from year to year, people adjusted rather than resisted. This adaptability was essential for survival. Rigid calendars would have failed in unpredictable environments. Flexible beginnings allowed societies to respond to variation. A late spring delayed planting. A weak flood required caution. A harsh winter demanded extended restraint. The new year moved accordingly. The absence of a fixed moment also meant that beginnings were shared experiences rather than announcements. People felt the year turning together. They noticed the same changes. This shared noticing strengthened community bonds. Time was experienced collectively, not individually. As civilizations grew larger, maintaining this shared sense became more difficult. Yet the memory of nature-based beginnings persisted. Even when official calendars standardized dates, people continued to feel renewal at different times. The body still responds to light. The mind still responds to seasons. The idea that the new year could begin in spring, flood, or winter teaches a broader lesson. Beginnings are contextual. They arise from need, environment, and experience. There is no single correct moment to begin again. What matters is alignment with reality. This perspective offers gentleness. It allows for multiple starts. It recognizes that change happens differently for everyone. Nature does not demand uniformity. It allows cycles to overlap, pause, and resume. In this ancient understanding, the new year was not an escape from the past, but a continuation shaped by circumstance. It honored what had come before while acknowledging what was needed next. Growth, renewal, and rebirth were not abstract ideas. They were lived processes. Nature, as the calendar, ensured that time remained connected to life. The year began when life required it to begin, and because life differed across landscapes, the new year did too. This diversity of beginnings is not a flaw in human history. It is evidence of attentiveness. Humans listened to their environments and responded accordingly. The new year was never meant to be universal. It was meant to be meaningful. Even now, beneath standardized dates, this truth remains. Some people feel renewed in spring. Others feel it in quiet winter mornings. Others feel it after periods of rest or cleansing. These feelings are echoes of ancient calendars still alive within us. The new year, shaped by nature, teaches that beginnings do not need agreement to be real, they need alignment. And nature, in its many forms, has always provided more than one way to begin again. The variations in the timing of the new year across civilizations also influenced how people perceived the passage of time. In a world without clocks or widespread literacy, observing patterns in nature was the only way to understand cycles. When a river rose, when buds appeared, when the night began to lengthen or shorten, people took note. These observations were not trivial. They shaped work, ritual, and expectation. The new year was a marker in this ongoing attentiveness, a moment when the accumulated wisdom of observation could be recognized and acted upon. In regions with complex river systems, such as Mesopotamia and Egypt, the natural markers were particularly precise. Communities relied on annual floods, subtle changes in soil moisture, and the behavior of animals to guide planting and harvesting. Calendars that emerged from these observations were practical tools, yet they never detached from the living environment. Even with tablets and written records, the authority of nature remained paramount. The new year was valid only when it aligned with the rhythms of the world. This reliance on natural cues fostered a sense of humility and patience. Humans were part of a larger system, not masters of it. The new year reminded them of their position, small, dependent, yet capable of contributing meaningfully. Waiting for the right moment to plant or act was not passive. It was a form of engagement with reality. Observing the world carefully, responding at the appropriate moment, was the work of being human. In this way, the new year became a teacher, instructing communities in attentiveness, timing, and respect for forces beyond control. Different environments reinforced different lessons. In northern climates, where winters were long and harsh, survival demanded endurance. The new year arrived during the darkest time, emphasizing resilience over productivity. It was a psychological and emotional marker as much as a practical one. The lengthening of days was subtle at first, but every small change mattered. People measured light with their bodies and minds, feeling the gradual return of warmth and hope. This beginning underscored that some cycles, though imperceptible day to day, are vital for life. Conversely, in equatorial or riverine societies, beginnings were tied to abundance and renewal. The rising waters of the Nile, the floodplains of the Tigris and Euphrates, or the onset of the monsoon in South Asia, dictated when the year could, long before daily life was dictated by clocks, schedules, or official records. Human societies relied on ritual to structure their existence. Ceremonies were sacred, deliberate, and often slow. They were occasions in which communities aligned themselves with the cycles of the natural world, the movements of the heavens, and the rhythms of life and death. Rituals were not merely formalities. They were tools for survival, understanding, and social cohesion. Every gesture, every chant, and every offering had purpose. Life was framed not just by work or necessity, but by these carefully constructed moments of attention. The new year, the harvest, the first rains, or the longest night of winter were all occasions that demanded ritualized action, shaping the way people experienced the passing of time and their relationship to the world. In early human societies, the distinction between sacred and secular did not exist in the way we understand it today. The act of preparing food, hunting animals, tending fields, or constructing shelters could be imbued with significance beyond the practical. A successful hunt was evidence of favor from unseen forces. A bountiful harvest was not only the result of human labor, but also a reflection of harmony with nature or divine order. Rituals arose to acknowledge these relationships, to provide structure, and to help communities interpret outcomes that could otherwise feel arbitrary or threatening. Sacred ceremonies offered a language for understanding the world, a way to impose order on uncertainty, and a shared experience that bonded members of a community together. These early rituals were often elaborate, extending over multiple days and involving complex sequences of action, speech, and observation. Priests, shamans, elders, or other designated leaders guided these ceremonies, ensuring that every step was performed correctly. The timing of rituals was critical, often aligned with celestial events, seasonal shifts, or the behavior of animals. The correctness of execution was believed to influence outcomes directly. If ceremonies were neglected or performed improperly, it could result in misfortune, poor harvests, or imbalance in the community's life. The new year, in particular, carried heightened importance because it marked the transition from one cycle to another. The community's well-being for that year ahead seemed intertwined with how the ritual was conducted. As societies grew and became more complex, these sacred rituals began to shift. Communities expanded, populations became larger, and social structures more hierarchical. The need for uniformity and consistency increased. The weight of sacred authority began to blend with social expectation. While rituals retained their symbolic meaning, they also began to serve as social glue, reinforcing community identity and shared values. Ceremonies were no longer only about interacting with the divine or the natural world. They were also about reminding people of their place within the social order, of their responsibilities to one another, and of the continuity of tradition. Over generations, the performance of ritual often became more standardized. Actions that had once been improvised or deeply personalized were formalized into patterns that could be taught, learned, and repeated. Chanting, music, procession, and gestures were codified. This codification had practical benefits. It ensured that rituals could persist even as individual leaders passed away, as societies migrated, or as communities encountered new environmental or political challenges. Standardized ritual created continuity in a changing world. The sacred meaning was preserved, even as the form became more familiar and accessible. This process also led to simplification. Complex ceremonies that had once involved extensive preparation, rare materials, or specialized knowledge were adapted to the realities of larger, more populous societies. Components that were too difficult to maintain at scale were modified or omitted. At the same time, the essential symbolic functions remained intact. Communities continued to recognize cycles, honor transitions, and acknowledge dependence on forces beyond themselves. Meaning persisted even as practices became simpler, more routine, and more widely performed. What mattered was not the intricacy of action, the shared attention and collective recognition of significance. As rituals became more routine, they also became more integrated into the daily and yearly rhythms of life. Ceremonial markers of the new year, harvests, or seasonal shifts gradually transformed into public festivals, feasts, and social gatherings. While the original sacred intent might still be honored, the activities became enjoyable and familiar, accessible to all members of the community rather than only the initiated. People could participate in ways that were socially reinforcing without needing specialized training. In this way, ritual evolved into a tradition that reinforced both meaning and cohesion, linking past, present, and future through shared observance. The transformation from ritual to routine illustrates the adaptability of human culture. Societies were able to retain the symbolic power of ceremonies while adapting them to changing circumstances, such as urbanization, population growth, or political consolidation. For example, a ritual that originally involved complex offerings to agricultural deities might become a community feast celebrating a harvest. The sacred acknowledgement of renewal and gratitude remained, but the practice was simplified to suit larger audiences and the practicalities of organized society. Ritual and routine merged, preserving significance while allowing broader participation. Another crucial element of this evolution was storytelling. Sacred ceremonies were always accompanied by narratives that conveyed meaning, history, and instruction. As rituals became routine, these stories helped maintain the deeper significance behind the simplified actions. Narratives explained why a festival existed, why a particular gesture mattered, or why specific customs were followed. Through storytelling, the symbolic content of ritual could persist even as practices became more familiar. ensuring that participants continued to experience the sense of continuity and connection that rituals were designed to foster. This evolution also demonstrates the way humans negotiate between permanence and change. Rituals could not remain static because societies, environments, and political structures were constantly evolving. At the same time, the need for continuity demanded that the essence of these ceremonies survive. Transformation from sacred ritual to social tradition allowed societies to balance these forces. Practices could adapt without losing their identity, and communities could maintain cohesion and shared meaning even as the forms of observance shifted. Participation in these transformed rituals became a marker of social identity. Individuals expressed belonging, respect, and adherence to communal norms by engaging in routine observances. In a very real sense, the routine of ceremony itself reinforced the sacred because it reminded participants of the values and patterns they were honoring. Even if the initial complexity of the ritual had been simplified, the act of participation carried meaning. Shared repetition became a source of cultural memory, embedding lessons and values into the rhythm of life. As societies continued to grow, economic, political, and technological factors also influenced the simplification of ritual. Urbanization meant that elaborate preparations were sometimes impractical. Large populations required ceremonies that could be executed efficiently without losing their symbolic force. Resources that had been scarce or difficult to manage in early communities became more readily available, allowing symbolic substitution to take the place. Physical offerings. For instance, the act of giving might be simplified, replacing rare items with readily accessible tokens, while preserving the ethical and spiritual intentions behind the gesture. Meaning remained central, even as the mechanics of practice became less burdensome. The transformation from sacred ritual to routine also reflects a broader philosophical understanding that significance does not reside solely in elaborate action, but in attention, intention, and collective acknowledgement. A gesture repeated in recognition of seasonal change, a song sung in unison, or a gathering to mark a turning point in the year carries power because it expresses awareness, participation, and shared values. The shift from ritual to routine highlights the human capacity to preserve meaning while adapting form, ensuring that symbolism continues to guide social and moral life. Even as rituals became simpler, they retained their ability to structure time and experience. The marking of the new year, for example, continued to signal transition, renewal, and reflection. Festivals, feasts, and communal activities acted as temporal anchors, giving rhythm to life. The change in seasons, the progression of agricultural cycles, and the succession of years were experienced collectively, reinforcing continuity and social cohesion. Simplified practices did not diminish their significance. Instead, they allowed more people to internalize and participate in the shared understanding of time, obligation, and renewal. Over centuries, the evolution of ritual into routine also enabled the integration of diverse cultural influences. Societies that encountered neighboring civilizations, migrated, or expanded their territories often blended practices, creating hybrid traditions. Elements from older, more elaborate ceremonies could be preserved symbolically within newer, more practical frameworks. In this way, meaning persisted even as forms changed. The continuity of shared values, ethical norms, and collective memory remained intact, ensuring that the evolution of practice did not erode cultural identity. Many contemporary holidays and observances retain echoes of early sacred rituals. Religious, civic, and seasonal celebrations continue to mark transitions in time, emphasize renewal, and foster communal bonds. They are often simpler, more accessible, and more familiar than their ancient predecessors, yet the underlying symbolic structures survive. Participants may no longer require specialized knowledge or perform complex sequences of action, but the intention, the acknowledgement of continuity, gratitude, and connection remains. This evolution from ritual to routine also demonstrates the interplay between sacred and social functions. Sacred meaning could be preserved within social practice without necessitating complexity. Communities could participate collectively, fostering cohesion and shared identity, while still honoring the symbolic content of ceremonies. Routine became a vehicle for maintaining continuity, transmitting knowledge and embedding moral, ethical, and spiritual lessons across generations. The act of participation itself became sacred, even if the outward form was simplified. Another important aspect of this transformation was accessibility. As rituals became routines, they became more inclusive. While early ceremonies might have been restricted to priests, elders, or specific castes, routine observances allowed broader participation. This inclusion reinforced communal identity, ensuring that knowledge, values, and social cohesion were shared widely. Meaning was not lost in this process. Instead, it was democratized, allowing entire communities to experience continuity, renewal, and collective responsibility. Furthermore, the simplification of ritual allowed for the layering of new symbolic meanings over older practices. As societies encountered new challenges, beliefs, or cultural influences, the routine could be adapted without losing its foundational significance. For example, seasonal festivals originally tied to agricultural cycles could incorporate elements of civic identity, social gratitude, or spiritual reflection. The flexible nature of routine ensured resilience and relevance over time. Meaning persisted because it was embedded not solely in material complexity, but in collective awareness, repetition, and social integration. Ultimately, the transformation from sacred ritual to routine illustrates a profound aspect of human cultural evolution. The capacity to preserve significance while adapting form. Rituals guided early societies in navigating uncertainty, structuring time, and reinforcing moral and social order. As societies expanded and became more complex, these rituals evolved into accessible, familiar routines without losing their symbolic power. The essence of observance, attention, intention, and collective recognition remained central, ensuring that meaning endured even as practice became simpler, more efficient, and socially integrated. In this way, the story of ritual transforming into routine demonstrates the human ability to adapt cultural practices to changing circumstances while maintaining continuity. Sacred ceremonies, once complex and specialized, became social traditions that guided behavior, reinforced shared values, and provided a sense of temporal structure. Even as practices became more familiar, their underlying significance persisted. The New Year, seasonal festivals, and other communal observances illustrate this enduring principle, that the meaning of ritual resides not solely in elaborate form, but in the attention, intention, and collective acknowledgement of those who participate. As societies continued to grow, the evolution from ritual to routine became even more pronounced, yet the underlying purpose of these observances remained. Communities had to balance complexity with accessibility. Elaborate ceremonies, while meaningful, could exclude portions of the population or become impractical in urban or densely populated settings. Simplifying practices allowed the essence of the ritual to persist while enabling broader participation. People could experience continuity, shared values, and a sense of temporal structure without requiring specialized knowledge or extensive preparation. Routine, in this sense, became a tool for inclusivity, a way to maintain cultural cohesion while accommodating growth. The rhythm of routine observances also provided a framework for social memory. By participating in familiar patterns year after year, individuals internalized the lessons, values, and ethics embedded in earlier sacred practices. A festival or communal gathering was not just a celebration. It was an ongoing education in the principles that guided life, from respect for the natural world to cooperation with neighbors and acknowledgement of moral responsibility. Even as the external complexity of rituals diminished, Their capacity to shape thought, behavior, and social norms remained robust. Simplified practices often incorporated symbolic gestures to preserve meaning. Where early rituals might have demanded rare offerings, intricate chants, or extended ceremonies, the transformed routine might retain a single representative action: lighting a fire to symbolize renewal, offering a modest portion of food to express gratitude, or performing a communal gesture to mark unity. These symbolic elements functioned as bridges between past and present, ensuring that even minimal actions could evoke the depth of earlier sacred observances. The essence of ritual, attention, intention, and communal recognition, persisted in these concise forms. As religious and cultural institutions developed, the integration of ritual into routine became intertwined with governance, civic life, and social regulation. Leaders used routine observances to reinforce societal norms, ethical conduct, and loyalty. Public festivals became occasions to demonstrate unity, shared identity, and continuity across generations. Even when the spiritual or sacred aspects were adapted, the social and ethical functions of the rituals were reinforced. This dual purpose allowed routine to serve both symbolic and practical needs, connecting people to transcendent principles while organizing social life in tangible ways. Storytelling continued to play a central role in this evolution. Narratives accompanying ceremonies preserved historical knowledge, moral lessons, and communal values. As practices became routine, the stories ensured that participants understood why the actions mattered. Children learned not only the gestures and customs, but also the significance behind them. These narratives provided continuity, linking contemporary practice with ancestral experience and reinforcing the cultural memory embedded in the ritual. Even as forms simplified, meaning remained anchored in story, reinforcing the depth of shared tradition. Rituals also evolved to adapt to the cycles of everyday life. Observances that had once required weeks of preparation or participation were condensed into specific days or sequences that fit into seasonal and occupational patterns. The New Year, harvest festivals, and seasonal rites were scheduled to align with the practical needs of work, travel, and survival. Simplification did not diminish their symbolic potency. Rather, it allowed the rituals to integrate seamlessly with the lived experience of communities. Observance became a natural part of life, sustaining cultural identity without imposing undue burden. The democratization of ritual through routine reinforced the collective nature of meaning. As participation broadened, individuals learned that significance was not derived from personal authority or mastery, but from engagement within a community. Everyone, from child to elder, could contribute and witness the continuity of practice. This collective recognition became the core of ritual power. Even simplified gestures and routines retained the sacred dimension because their meaning was created and affirmed through shared observation, participation, and acknowledgement. Over centuries, the shift from ritual to routine allowed cultures to absorb new influences while preserving continuity. Societies encountered neighboring peoples, experienced migration, adapted to environmental change. The essential meaning of ceremonies could be retained even as forms evolved through substitution, symbolic adaptation, or reinterpretation. For example, a ritual originally centered on fertility might evolve to emphasize prosperity or social harmony, retaining the underlying principle of acknowledgement and continuity. Routine enabled flexibility without sacrificing significance. Routine also shaped the temporal experience of communities. Annual festivals, New Year observances, and seasonal ceremonies became markers of time, providing structure and rhythm in the absence of modern measurement. Individuals and communities developed an intuitive sense of temporal flow, reinforced through repeated participation in these cycles. Time was lived, felt, and experienced collectively rather than abstractly counted. The regularity of routine created stability and a shared framework for social coordination, even in urbanized societies, where the immediacy of nature was less apparent. Routine rituals retain symbolic power. Civic celebrations, public holidays, and communal observances echoed earlier sacred practices, linking individuals to the cycles of society, environment, and life itself. The repetition of routine maintained memory, reinforced social bonds, and instilled values of gratitude, reflection, and renewal. Participants might no longer perceive the original sacred significance in every action, but the rhythm, cohesion, and moral structure embedded in the routine continued to shape community life. The psychological impact of transforming ritual into routine should not be underestimated. Repetition fosters comfort, familiarity, and a sense of stability. Even simplified practices can evoke awe, reflection, and collective focus. Humans are attuned to patterns. Observing them creates a sense of order and continuity. Routine rituals allow communities to mark transitions, recognize achievements or losses, and anticipate future cycles. They provide both temporal and emotional orientation, guiding behavior, reflection, and communal cohesion. Importantly, the evolution from ritual to routine demonstrates the human capacity to preserve meaning in changing circumstances. Sacred observances, once complex and specialized, became accessible, familiar, and socially integrated, yet retain the values, lessons, and symbolic content of their origins. Communities could participate fully without requiring mastery of complex procedures. The act of engagement itself became meaningful, embedding tradition in the rhythm of life. Simplification did not signify loss. It represented adaptation, ensuring relevance and resilience across generations. This transformation also reflects the interplay between individual and collective experience. Participation in routine observances allowed personal reflection, moral engagement, and ethical reinforcement, while simultaneously fostering social cohesion and collective identity. Individuals experienced continuity with ancestors, peers, and the environment, recognizing their role within larger cycles. Ritual became routine without losing its capacity to connect people to transcendent, ethical, or communal principles. Moreover, the shift from sacred ritual to routine allowed practices to endure over centuries, bridging cultural change, migration, and social transformation. By retaining symbolic meaning while simplifying action, societies ensured that traditions could survive disruptions, integrate new influences, and remain relevant. Routine observance became a living archive, preserving knowledge, values, and social memory in a form accessible to all members of the community. Even today, the legacy of this evolution is visible. Modern holidays, New Year celebrations, seasonal festivals, and civic commemorations retain echoes of ancient sacred rituals. Though the practices may be simpler, the underlying purpose remains: to mark time, honor continuity, reinforce shared values, and provide moments of reflection, gratitude, and renewal. Communities continue to experience the rhythm of life collectively, engaging with both past and present through familiar observances. In conclusion, the journey from sacred ceremony to routine demonstrates the adaptability, resilience, and continuity of human culture. Rituals once elaborate and specialized were transformed into accessible, socially integrated practices that preserved meaning while accommodating growth, complexity, and change. The essential elements: attention, intention, collective recognition, and symbolic reflection remain central, allowing societies to maintain continuity, identity, and cohesion. Even as practices became familiar and simplified, the values, lessons, and shared experiences they embodied endured, ensuring that the rhythms of life, the marking of time, and the recognition of transition continued to guide human communities across generations. Long before calendars were standardized and clocks dictated schedules, humans recognized that life unfolded in cycles. The passing of time was not simply a measurement of days and nights, but a lived experience shaped by the rhythms of the natural world, the seasons, and human endeavor. The new year in its earliest forms was not a date on a calendar, but a recognition of transition. It was a moment to pause, to notice that one chapter of life had ended and another was beginning, and to orient oneself within that shift. This recognition was profoundly human. It arose not from a desire to escape the past, but from a deep need to reflect, reorganize, and prepare. To mark a new beginning was to gently reorder hope, memory, and intention, to create continuity between what had been and what might yet be, without rushing the natural flow of change. At its core, the human need to begin again is rooted in awareness. People are conscious of past actions, of successes and failures, of joys and losses. Memory accumulates in layers, creating a sense of self and a narrative of life. Without recognition of these layers, there would be little basis for learning, reflection, or growth. The new year functions as a temporal threshold, a point at which individuals and communities can step back and acknowledge the weight of memory while orienting toward the possibilities ahead. It is a pause that allows the mind to catalog experience, to identify what is meaningful, and to consider what requires attention or adjustment. This process is both practical and emotional. From a practical standpoint, the new year provides a framework for planning, prioritization, and coordination. Early agricultural societies, for instance, relied on cyclical observations of the earth, sun, and water to guide planting and harvesting. The turning of the year offered an opportunity to take stock of resources, evaluate strategies, and set intentions for survival and prosperity. In this way, beginnings are not arbitrary. They are grounded in observation, necessity, and thoughtful preparation. Yet alongside these practical functions is an emotional dimension. The new year offers hope. It allows people to imagine the future as a space of possibility rather than a continuation of error or loss. This gentle reorganizing of hope is subtle but profound. It does not erase the past, but situates it as a foundation upon which new choices can be built. Across cultures, the marking of the new year has taken countless forms, each reflecting the interplay of memory, intention, and hope. In some societies, fire was used to symbolize renewal. Flames consumed the remnants of the old year, offering light and warmth while marking the threshold of the new. In others, water played a central role, washing away accumulated residue, purifying space, and signaling fresh beginnings. In still others, communal gatherings, feasts, or silent reflection allowed individuals to share in the recognition of time's passage and the communal orientation toward what lay ahead. Despite the diversity of practices, the underlying principle is consistent. Humans seek moments in which the past can be acknowledged and the future approached with conscious attention rather than impulsive change. The new year is also an invitation to slow down. Life is rarely linear. Decisions, events, and consequences often arrive unpredictably. Humans tend to be impatient, wishing to move forward quickly, to correct mistakes instantly, or to accelerate desired outcomes. Yet beginning again cannot be rushed. The human psyche requires time to integrate experiences, to reflect on patterns, and to organize priorities. The new year provides a structured pause, a culturally sanctioned moment to slow down, to consider what has been achieved, what has been lost, and what remains to be done. This intentional slowing cultivates clarity, balance, and resilience. Memory plays a central role in this process. As humans reflect at the threshold of a new year, they often engage in acts of remembrance. They recall what has been learned, who has been important, and what circumstances have shaped their lives. Memory is not merely nostalgic, it is functional. By organizing past experiences into coherent understanding, humans gain insight into patterns, causes, and consequences. This knowledge informs choices in the present and intentions for the future. The new year thus becomes an instrument of reflection, a temporal lens through which life can be reevaluated and gently reordered. Hope is inseparable from this reflection. The new year embodies the possibility of change, not as abrupt transformation, but as careful, deliberate orientation. It allows humans to envision a future informed by experience, but not constrained by it. Hope is not about denying past mistakes. It is about recognizing that there is still opportunity for growth, renewal, and alignment. By marking the new year, individuals and communities reaffirm the capacity to act intentionally, to make choices that reflect values, priorities, and aspirations. This gentle optimism is anchored in realism, acknowledging continuity while allowing for evolution. The need to begin again also intersects with communal life. Humans are inherently social beings. Time is experienced collectively, and the marking of new beginnings reinforces social cohesion. Festivals, ceremonies, and communal observances provide shared recognition of transition, allowing groups to align memory, hope, and intention collectively. In these moments, individual reflection is amplified by communal presence. The new year becomes not only an individual orientation, but a shared ritual of continuity, reinforcing bonds and ensuring that transitions are acknowledged collectively. Social structure and communal awareness thus reinforce personal reflection, creating a feedback loop that strengthens both individual and societal resilience. In many cultures, symbolic acts are employed to support this gentle reorganization of life. Writing resolutions, offering gifts, lighting candles, or engaging in cleansing rituals externalizes internal reflection. These acts make abstract intentions tangible, allowing humans to interact with memory and hope in physical, structured ways. They embody the principle that change is both internal and external, cognitive and tangible. Cognitive. By engaging with these symbols, individuals bridge the gap between intention and action, memory and hope, past and future. The psychological impact of marking a new beginning is profound. Humans are not purely rational. They are deeply attuned to symbolic, temporal, and ritual cues. Recognizing a new year provides emotional closure, reducing anxiety about past errors and framing the future as manageable and ordered. This ritualized transition helps the mind integrate experiences and recalibrate priorities. By situating oneself at a threshold, humans can reorder attention, release unproductive patterns, and gently cultivate intentionality for the months ahead. It is a pause that is both reflective and generative. Importantly, the human need to begin again is not an escape. Unlike fictional notions of a fresh start that erase the past, the new year is grounded in continuity. Reflection acknowledges what has been, memory preserves lessons, and hope guides forward action. It is an integrative process where past, present, and future are brought into relationship. Beginning again is therefore an act of coherence, not denial. Humans recognize that time flows continuously, and renewal is not about breaking from history, but about orienting oneself within it with care and intentionality. Nature often reinforces this rhythm of beginning. The changing seasons, the cycle of day and night, the return of sunlight or rain, all provide cues that echo the temporal structure humans have long sought. Observing these patterns, early societies aligned human action with natural cycles, ensuring that beginnings were not arbitrary but grounded in lived reality. Even today, seasonal markers continue to support the psychological and social functions of the new year. Spring symbolizes growth, winter symbolizes endurance and reflection, and periods of change remind humans of the possibility of renewal within the continuity of life. Cultural memory also plays a vital role. The new year is preserved through story, song, ritual, and tradition, transmitting lessons across generations. These shared practices ensure that the human need to begin again is not only personal, but communal. Children learn through participation that transitions are natural, that reflection is valuable, and that hope is essential. Societies embed this knowledge in collective consciousness, ensuring continuity of practice, value, and orientation across generations. The new year becomes both a teacher and a mirror, reflecting and guiding human awareness. The gentle reorganization of intention is perhaps the most subtle yet profound function of marking the new year. Humans are capable of foresight planning and ethical reflection. By designating a time to begin anew, individuals can consciously decide which behaviors, habits, or patterns to maintain, adjust, or release. This process is deliberate, not impulsive. It respects the tempo of life, acknowledging that meaningful change requires attention, reflection, and gradual effort. The new year provides structure for this process, a temporal container that encourages thoughtful engagement rather than reactive adjustment. Even as societies modernized, the psychological and social functions of the new year have endured, though calendars are standardized. Technology accelerates life, and global communication compresses time. Humans still mark transitions. They write resolutions, host gatherings, or take moments of reflection. These practices fulfill the same ancient need to recognize passage, integrate memory, cultivate hope, and organize intention. The form may have changed, but the underlying purpose is unchanged. Humans continue to seek temporal thresholds that allow reflection and gentle reordering of life. In this context, the new year is an exercise in patience and attentiveness. It encourages acknowledgement without urgency, reflection without paralysis, and hope without denial. It teaches that renewal is not instantaneous but cumulative, built through mindful action, collective awareness, and alignment with natural and social rhythms. The need to begin again is both a psychological necessity and a cultural strategy, supporting personal growth, social cohesion, and continuity over time. Across history and geography, the human impulse to mark beginnings demonstrates remarkable consistency. Whether through fire, water, communal gathering, or silent reflection, the same principle persists. Humans seek a structured moment to reorganize memory, hope, and intention. The new year functions as a temporal compass guiding thought, emotion, and action. It situates individuals and communities within cycles, providing clarity, orientation, and continuity. It is an act of care, patience, and mindfulness, acknowledging that life moves forward not in leaps, but in deliberate steps of attention and intention. By observing this pattern, we can appreciate that beginnings are not about denial, escape, or instant transformation. They are about alignment, integration, and reflection. They honor what is past, anticipate what is to come, and situate human action within the flow of time. The new year, in all its forms, is a testament to the enduring human need to begin again, to pause, to recognize, to hope, and to act intentionally. It is a gentle reorganization of life itself, orchestrated not in haste, but with care, awareness, and fidelity to both memory and aspiration. The human need to begin again, expressed through the marking of the new year, thus represents a timeless and universal aspect of experience. It is both practical and symbolic, individual and communal, reflective and generative. It is an acknowledgement that time passes, that life is continuous, and that humans require structured moments in which to integrate past experience, cultivate hope, and set intentions for the future. Through reflection, ritual, and routine, humans have consistently honored this need, creating a rhythm of beginnings that sustains emotional well-being, social cohesion, and cultural continuity across generations. The process of beginning again at the new year also reflects a deeply human understanding of impermanence. Life unfolds in unpredictable patterns, successes and failures, joy and sorrow, growth and decline. By marking a new beginning, humans create a temporal anchor amidst uncertainty. The new year thus becomes a rehearsal for life itself, a period to pause, evaluate, and proceed with conscious attention to both possibility and limitation. Throughout history, humans have also used beginnings as a way to reconcile with time itself. Aging, mortality, and the inevitability of change can produce anxiety or disorientation. The new year offers a way to situate oneself within the continuum of life. By marking a transition, individuals create psychological markers that order experience. Memory, hope, and intention are aligned within this framework, producing a sense of coherence and temporal orientation. This process allows humans to feel connected to the larger flow of existence, integrating personal experience with shared rhythms and cycles. Even in modern life, when time can feel compressed or abstract, the need to begin again persists. Technological acceleration, global communication, and constant connectivity challenge humans to find meaningful temporal anchors. The new year continues to serve this function, offering a culturally recognized moment to pause, reflect, and reorient. It provides a natural opportunity for evaluation and intention setting, ensuring that life is not experienced as an undifferentiated stream, but as a series of meaningful, recognized transitions. The human need to begin again is also a testament to our capacity for hope. Change is rarely instantaneous, and transformation cannot be forced. By establishing a temporal threshold, humans give themselves permission to approach change gradually with awareness and patience. Hope becomes structured and directed, grounded in reflection rather than fantasy. The new year facilitates a gentle optimism, an acknowledgement that the future is open, that choices matter, and that actions, however small, can influence the course of life. It reinforces the principle that renewal is a process, not a singular event, and that intentionality is the key to meaningful change. Symbolic acts associated with the new year, whether cleansing, feasting, lighting candles, or communal participation, serve as tools for internal alignment. They create a physical and psychological space for reflection, allowing memory to be organized, hope to be articulated, and intention to be clarified. Through these practices, humans create continuity across time, linking past experiences with future possibilities. This linkage is not forced or hurried. It is deliberate, gentle, and contemplative, allowing the mind to engage fully with the process of beginning again. The role of the new year in supporting social cohesion is equally important. By participating collectively in temporal markers, communities reinforce shared values and norms. Ritualized beginnings allow members to acknowledge both individual and collective experiences, creating a sense of belonging and mutual understanding. Socially recognized thresholds help synchronize thought, intention, and behavior, enhancing the capacity of communities to navigate uncertainty together. The new year thus functions as both an individual and collective mechanism for reflection, renewal, and coordinated action. Importantly, the new year also respects the natural rhythm of gradual change. Humans often feel pressured to correct past mistakes immediately or to achieve dramatic transformation in a short time. Marking a beginning does not demand sudden alteration. It permits incremental adjustments, thoughtful planning, and conscious attention. By providing a temporal container for intention, humans can pace their actions according to need and capacity, aligning inner purpose with practical reality. This pacing fosters sustainability and growth and adaptation, ensuring that change is enduring rather than fleeting. Throughout history and across cultures, the human need to begin again has been expressed in myriad ways, yet its essence remains constant. Whether through silent meditation, communal feasts, ritual cleansing, or symbolic gestures, humans have consistently sought moments to reorganize hope, memory, and intention. The forms may change with time, geography, or technology, but the underlying principle persists: the desire to orient oneself within the flow of life, to reflect on the past, and to approach the future with conscious attention and gentle hope. The new year, therefore, represents more than a date on a calendar. It is a temporal threshold that fosters reflection, integrates memory, nurtures hope, and clarifies intention. It is a human-made rhythm that aligns with both individual and collective experience, creating continuity within the unfolding of life. It recognizes impermanence while providing structure, uncertainty while offering orientation, and the passage of time while enabling purposeful engagement. In this way, the need to begin again is both a psychological and cultural imperative, one that has endured across millennia, geography, and society. By consciously marking the new year, humans honor their capacity for reflection, patience, and intentionality. They acknowledge that life is continuous, that memory informs action, and that hope is necessary for meaningful engagement with the future. The gentle reorganization of life, facilitated by temporal thresholds and symbolic practices, allows individuals and communities to navigate complexity, uncertainty, and change with care and awareness. It is an expression of human resilience, adaptability, and aspiration, grounded in the recognition that each ending contains the seed of a new beginning. Ultimately, the human need to begin again underscores a fundamental aspect of existence. Life is a series of transitions that require mindful engagement. The new year provides a structure for this engagement, a socially and psychologically sanctioned moment to pause, reflect, and recalibrate. Through reflection on memory, nurturing of hope, and alignment of intention, humans create continuity and coherence across time. Beginnings are neither abrupt nor superficial. They are deliberate, measured, and integrated, allowing life to unfold with awareness, grace, and possibility. Time flows in ways both subtle and relentless, moving onward without pause, indifferent to human plans, desires, or celebrations. The turning of the new year, though marked by ritual, reflection, and communal acknowledgement, does not alter this flow. Days continue to pass, seasons continue to change, and the world moves forward regardless of our recognition. And yet humans have always sought moments in which to pause, to breathe, and to orient themselves within this ceaseless passage. The act of marking a beginning, reflecting on memory, intention, and hope, is a gentle counterpoint to the unstoppable rhythm of time. In these pauses, we do not stop time, but we align ourselves more fully with its movement, creating a space to rest, reflect, and gather strength for the journey ahead. From the earliest societies to the present day, humans have recognized the value of temporal markers. The new year, in its myriad forms, has served as such a marker threshold that invites attention, reflection, and mindful presence. The practice is not about halting the world, it is about creating a space within it. In acknowledging the transition from one cycle to another, humans cultivate awareness of continuity, linking past experience to present insight and future intention. The pause is brief yet profound, a quiet recognition that while the universe continues its flow, human consciousness can observe, appreciate, and participate with purpose. The idea that time continues even as humans pause is both humbling and liberating. Humbling because it reminds us that the vast machinery of existence does not revolve around our schedules or desires. Liberating because it allows reflection without pressure, hope without immediacy, and intention without urgency. In these moments, humans can settle into awareness, acknowledging the constancy of change while feeling the stability of presence. The new year exemplifies this delicate balance, a temporal anchor that highlights the passage of time while providing a gentle container for human thought and emotion. Pausing within continuity fosters deep introspection. Humans naturally carry the weight of experience, memories, regrets, achievements, and lessons through each cycle of life. The new year offers a culturally sanctioned opportunity to organize these reflections. It is a moment to gather the fragments of memory, examine their significance, and situate them within a broader understanding of personal and communal history. Unlike arbitrary halts, this pause is intentional, marked by ritual, tradition, and symbolic action. Fire, water, light, communal gatherings, or silent contemplation become tools for integrating memory with insight, ensuring that past experiences inform present awareness and future intention. Yet reflection in this space is gentle. Humans do not seek to rewrite history or erase past errors. They seek understanding, coherence, and continuity. Time continues unabated, and with it, the unfolding of life's complexities. The pause does not control, halt, or reverse these processes. It allows humans to rest within them. By creating space to observe rather than react, people cultivate resilience, clarity, and patience. Awareness of time's ongoing flow enhances mindfulness, teaching that beginnings and endings are not abrupt resets but part of a continuous cycle that unfolds naturally, inviting careful attention rather than hurried action. The pause also nurtures hope. While time flows inevitably forward, humans are uniquely capable of projecting intention into the future. Recognizing the passage of one cycle and the beginning of another provides a framework for hope that is grounded in reality. Humans can acknowledge what has been accomplished, consider what is possible, and set gentle intentions without expecting immediate transformation. The new year, in this sense, is less about erasing the past and more about creating alignment between the accumulated experience of life and the aspirations yet to be realized. It is a temporal gesture of care and intentionality, situating hope within the flow of continuity, rather than apart from it. Communal recognition amplifies the power of the pause. Shared observances allow humans to witness each other's reflection, intention, and presence, reinforcing social bonds and collective memory. Even as time continues, communities align themselves temporarily in a shared rhythm of acknowledgement. Ritual, song, feasting, or quiet gathering becomes a medium through which individuals connect across generations, creating a sense of belonging and continuity. The new year, celebrated collectively, allows humans to experience both individual introspection and communal connection within the same moment, harmonizing the personal and social dimensions of temporal awareness. The ongoing nature of time encourages mindfulness within these pauses. Humans learn to inhabit the present, recognizing both continuity and impermanence. Every breath, every thought, every gesture is situated within the vast continuum of existence. The new year offers a symbolic lens through which to practice this awareness. As one reflects on the past year, considers the months to come, or simply rests in the stillness of the present, time continues to move, unhurried and impartial. Humans, in turn, practice conscious alignment, observing, appreciating, and participating in the rhythm of life rather than resisting or ignoring it. This recognition of continuity nurtures humility. It is a reminder that while humans can plan, reflect, and act intentionally, the universe operates on scales and cycles far beyond individual control. Seasons arrive, rivers flow, stars rise and set, and life unfolds independently of human desire. The new year, then, is a moment to acknowledge both agency and limitation, to celebrate capacity while honoring context. It teaches that meaningful action emerges not from forcing change, but from aligning with the currents of continuity, cultivating patience and resilience within the natural flow of existence. Memory, too, is recontextualized within this framework. Human recollection of past events, triumphs, and challenges gains clarity when placed against the ongoing passage of time. By pausing at a temporal threshold, humans can organize memories into coherent narratives, drawing insight without becoming overwhelmed. The process is restorative. Memory is neither abandoned nor idealized. It is integrated, providing grounding and perspective. In this way, humans maintain a sense of continuity across cycles, honoring the past while preparing for the unfolding future. Hope, when situated within continuous time, becomes sustainable and measured. Because the new year does not magically reset circumstance, hope is framed in terms of realistic potential. Humans recognize that change takes time, that actions accumulate gradually, and that transformation is often subtle rather than dramatic. This framing fosters patience, persistence, and intentionality. Rather than relying on abrupt resolution, humans are guided to cultivate change incrementally, appreciating small steps as part of the larger arc of life. The pause at the new year thus supports both psychological equilibrium and practical efficacy. Intention is strengthened through reflection within continuity. Humans are capable of projecting thought and action into the future, but without a moment of pause, intentions can become diffuse, unfocused, or forgotten. The new year provides a cultural container for focus, allowing individuals to clarify priorities, align goals with values, and observe the interplay between past experience and future possibility. These intentions are anchored in the reality of ongoing time rather than abstract aspiration, enhancing both coherence and effectiveness in guiding behavior. The interplay between individual reflection and temporal continuity creates a deeply restorative experience. Humans learn that even while time moves onward, they can inhabit moments of stillness, integrate experience, and prepare for the future. The new year exemplifies this principle by providing a culturally recognized pause, offering structure and meaning without attempting to halt the natural progression of life. The balance between ongoing movement and reflective stillness nurtures psychological, emotional, and social well-being, reinforcing the human capacity to navigate complexity with grace. Even in modern contexts, where technology accelerates life and time can feel compressed, the human need to pause within continuity persists. Cultural observances, family gatherings, personal reflection, and quiet rituals continue to anchor awareness, providing respite from the relentless forward motion of existence. Humans instinctively seek moments to step back, reorganize, and integrate, using symbolic markers like the new year to engage consciously with the passage of time. These pauses maintain perspective, reinforce memory, cultivate hope, and clarify intention, all within the ongoing flow that carries life forward. The symbolic nature of this pause allows humans to experience both rest and alignment simultaneously. Though time is relentless, the mind and body can synchronize with the rhythm of reflection, gratitude, and quiet anticipation. Pausing does not resist continuity, it honors it. Humans inhabit a temporal threshold that bridges past, present, and future, creating coherence and experience even as the world around them continues unabated. This dual awareness of both the flow of time and the capacity to pause within it is a fundamental aspect of human resilience and consciousness. Through ritual, narrative, and communal recognition, humans embed the understanding that beginnings and endings are moments within a continuous stream. The new year functions as a guidepost, not a reset button. It is an invitation to acknowledge passage, integrate learning, and orient toward intention while respecting the inexorable forward motion of life. In this awareness, reflection is neither hurried nor superficial. It is deep, deliberate, and sustainable. The pause is a gentle alignment with continuity, a mindful rest within the ongoing flow. Ultimately, the human experience of time balances continuity and pause, motion and reflection. The new year exemplifies this balance by creating a culturally sanctioned threshold that encourages memory, hope, and intention without claiming to alter the external flow of life. Humans participate in this rhythm, acknowledging the constancy of change while nurturing their own capacity to observe, reflect, and act intentionally. The pause is therefore both practical and philosophical, offering insight, grounding, and renewal while honoring the unceasing passage of time. As the new year unfolds, listeners and participants alike are invited to rest within this quiet continuity. Memory can be acknowledged, hope can be nurtured, and intention can be clarified, all within the unbroken flow of existence. Time continues, inexorable and impartial, but humans possess the capacity to pause, to inhabit the moment, and to align themselves with both personal and communal rhythms. This awareness cultivates serenity, insight, and resilience, allowing the mind and spirit to settle into the ongoing cadence of life without resistance. Even in solitude, the pause is powerful. Reflecting quietly on the passage of months, acknowledging lessons learned, and envisioning gentle possibilities for the future creates a profound sense of temporal orientation. Humans, even individually, participate in the rhythm of continuity, grounding themselves in experience while maintaining openness to what is yet to come. The new year is thus a vehicle for both reflection and alignment, supporting awareness, intention, and hope without disrupting the forward motion of life. The paradox of the new year is that it marks beginnings and endings, while existing entirely within ongoing continuity. It does not halt seasons, celestial movement, or the flow of daily life. Instead, it provides a moment of mindful engagement, a space to observe, integrate, and align. By embracing this perspective, humans cultivate patience, resilience, and clarity. They learn that beginnings are most meaningful when approached within the rhythm of continuity, and that reflection, hope, and intention are most effective when practiced without haste or compulsion. In conclusion, the new year reminds us that time is continuous, and our pausing is a gift we give ourselves within it. Humans do not stop the flow of existence. They create moments of awareness, rest, and gentle realignment. Memory is honored, hope is cultivated, and intention is clarified, all within the ongoing passage of life. By resting within this quiet continuity, humans connect past, present, and future, cultivating insight, resilience, and serenity. Time continues, unceasing and impartial, yet within its current, humans discover the power of mindful pause, reflection, and the gentle art of beginning again.